PS5 and Xbox Series consoles are starting to land in the laps of buyers. And whilst we may have a very small handful of games released specifically for the next-gen consoles, many Star Wars fans was quite interested in how Squadrons would transition from current-gen to next-gen. In a previous video, we did mention that you can successfully transfer your Squadrons account from a PS4 to a PS5, exactly the same as what you do with an Xbox One to an Xbox Series X, etc. But today we've got some pretty interesting news about how the PS5 and the Xbox Series X versions of Star Wars Squadrons will differ to the player. So without wasting any more time, I'm going to jump straight into it and explain what the differences are. So the publisher EA had outlined previously how some of their more recent games will take advantage of the power of the PS5 and the Xbox Series S and Series X. One of those games, as you know, was Star Wars Squadrons. However, seems like Star Wars Squadrons has not been created equal for both platforms. So let's cover what performance you can get on the Xbox Series S. So there's two modes on the Xbox Series S that you can play with. One is the Fidelity mode, which allows you to play in 1440p at 60 FPS. So this is probably the best graphics Squadrons can spit out, and many PC gamers can actually hit this as well. But the interesting part is that you can go into Performance mode, which allows you at 1440p at 120 FPS. Now this is actually quite crucial because I know a lot of PC players that can't even get a steady 20 FPS on Star Wars Squadrons. So that alone is quite a big win for next-gen console users. And if I remember rightly, current-gen console users was only able to run Star Wars Squadrons at 1080p at 60 FPS. So now you can see a big difference here already. Xbox Series X has these options as well, however it can go all the way up to 4K at 60 FPS at what I assume is the highest graphical fidelity. However, when I was really looking through these, I couldn't get the exact details on whether the 4K version will be on performance mode or fidelity mode. But this alone is quite a lot of options for Xbox Series S and Xbox Series X players can mess about with. This is probably one of the biggest grabs that Xbox currently has for next-gen users. It's allowing a lot of game developers to move current-gen console games into the next-gen with insane FPS gains. For example, I myself run an SLI of two 1080s, and even I struggle to get a steady 60 FPS on 1440p. So with the Xbox Series S, the cheaper variant of the two consoles, getting a steady 120 FPS, really impressive, especially when you can go all the way to 4K too. But it isn't all good news. Anybody who decided to get a PS5 for a next-gen console, you're kind of out of luck, unfortunately. Conversely, Squadrons on PS5 will run at the same resolution and frame rate as the PlayStation 4 Pro version, except with improved lighting. Now, whilst I don't have the full numbers to confirm this, the more powerful PlayStation 4 did have Star Wars Squadrons hit about 144p at 60 FPS. But 144p at 60 FPS is nowhere near as good as what you can get on the cheapest next-gen Xbox console. And whilst yes, the Xbox Series S is more powerful than a PlayStation 4 Pro, it doesn't hold a candle to a PS5. So you're getting big gains if you're coming in on an entry-level next-gen Xbox console. But for PS5 players, I'm really sorry, it's not looking good for you guys. Now, I really doubt Star Wars Squadrons is going to convince most Star Wars gaming players to choose which console they're going to go for. But for people who want to play this in VR on a PlayStation 5, as a console player, they're going to have to decide, do they want performance and fidelity or the lowest end performance and VR? I don't think it's a really nice choice for consumers to be placed in, at least for console players. And with Xbox not really having any VR peripherals, it means yet again the only way to get the best VR experience is with a 3080 and a Valve Index for Star Wars Squadrons on PC. Now, I do know PSVR does run games at about 120 FPS, and whilst my knowledge is limited on this, I do believe it is a 60 FPS interpolated at 2 times to make it look like it's 120 FPS. And whilst again this is all really jarring and kind of hazy on my end, I think this was also contributed to the 60 FPS lock bug that we saw for VR players. But again, I don't know if this is true, this is all speculation. But with the version 1.3 and 2.0 update patches, this FPS issue was fixed for many VR users. That mixed with Jedi Fallen Order, a massive Star Wars game coming to Xbox Game Pass in December, makes it very likely that Star Wars Squadrons will eventually be completely playable on the Xbox Game Pass. meaning for people still sitting on the fence about whether or not they want to get Squadrons or not, the inevitability of Star Wars Squadrons eventually coming on Xbox Game Pass will probably help them make that decision. This coincides pretty well with the fact that the EA Play service is coming to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate members with no additional cost. So it looks like EA is firmly making a statement by sticking with Microsoft on this one. So unfortunately for PS5 users, not only do you have to buy Star Wars Squadrons without being able to test it out, your gameplay experience is going to be very, very minimal compared to your PlayStation 4 Pro experience. As for Xbox users with the Xbox Series X or even with the Xbox Series S, you're going to see big differences in gameplay as you move over to the next gen console. Of course, the argument is that you can get the Xbox Game Pass on your PC as well, and for some users that might defeat the purpose of getting an Xbox, because you can probably play games like Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order or eventually Star Wars Squadrons on your PC with the Xbox Game Pass rather than on an Xbox. And for techies out there that actually care, the Xbox Series S and Xbox Series X versions of the game will also support variable refresh rate options if their monitor supports it. This feature does really well for games with a lot of UI. It means those pixels on the screen don't have to follow 120 FPS refresh rates if there's no change in that pixel color. A lot of technical jargon there, but basically it means that things that stand still in a game tend to be a bit more clearer. But if you were to ask me, I generally think Star Wars games are going to have a home on the Xbox console series. The collaboration between EA and Microsoft with their Xbox Game Pass and EA Play service, as well as the fact that Squadron's just getting a big boost in performance on the Xbox series rather than the PS5, indicates to me that any future Star Wars games that come out at this point onwards, they're probably going to have a better home on the Xbox. But that is just my opinion. I am also a little bit biased because I do like the Xbox lineup a little more than what the PS5 is offering. But at the end of the day, we'll never know who the true victor of the game consoles war will be this year. That decides entirely on the consumer, aka you, and obviously sales down the years. One other little footnote that I'll add just to make things absolutely clear, there will be full crossplay between all versions of the game. So PS5 users can play with PS4 users and PC users and Xbox users. You get the whole drill. And that people on a current gen system can move up to the next gen, so PS4 to PS5 and Xbox One to Xbox Series X. That does not include cross-platform, however. So if you have an Xbox One and you're moving to PS5, unfortunately you're going to have to make a new account. That goes the same for PC users. If you want to go from PC to a next-gen console, you're out of luck there. You're going to have to make a new account because all of the account data is saved on the platform you're playing on, not on your standard Origins account and so on. But that is where I'll conclude my video. My question of the day to you guys is, are you going to get Star Wars Squadrons on the next gen console, and which one is it going to be? Believe it or not, I'm actually really interested to hear your responses on this one, guys. I've got a little bit of a bias on the next gen consoles, so it'll be quite interesting to see if this news has affected you in any way, if you're going to stick with the PS5 or the Xbox Series. Let me know. But other than that, I have been Charlie, you've been watching EcksToo, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care.